right, the dark side of dentistry. I promise I'm going to get happier here in a second. So despite the fact that the average dentist takes home 3.5 times that of the average American household. So the average American household brings in $60,000 per year, and that could be combined salaries, or that could be the primary breadwinner. But the average American household is $60,000 in combined income. The typical dentist brings home 3.5 times that. So despite the fact that we are earning 3.5 times that of the average American household, dentistry has a disproportionately high percentage of drug and alcohol abuse, anxiety and depression. Dentists are 2 times more likely than the general population to suffer from a diagnosable anxiety disorder. Divorce, and the big one that everybody always talks about, suicide. Dentists are 2.5 times more likely than the general population to commit suicide. Now, I'm no psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't play one on TV, but I have spoken to thousands of dentists from all over the world. And the common themes that rise to the top from my personal experience, number one, is that predisposition to not collaborate and to isolate ourselves. This feeling that we're the only person in the world that's going through this particular struggle right now is extremely depressing and isolating. And throughout my travels in the last 10 years doing this as a coach, that is the number one theme that I see. So that is why it's my mission to convince people to collaborate, to surround yourself with positive people, and to keep things in perspective. More interesting stats to consider. Fewer than 10% of dentists felt like they were adequately prepared for practice ownership after graduation from dental school. And there's 77% of dentists that own their own practice, down from 84% 5 years ago. 10% of dentists felt like they were Fewer than 10% of dentists felt like they were adequately prepared for practice ownership from what they learned from the dental school curriculum. 82.7% of dentists reported to consistently experience moderate to severe stress. 34% of dentists reported to being frequently or always physically or emotionally exhausted. That's a really low percentage. I think it should be higher. 90% of dentists reported to be experiencing some level of acute or chronic musculoskeletal pain. Greater than 50% of dentists surveyed wish they would have selected a different career. So I've broken this down to 4 of the main themes that I've seen in my travels by speaking to thousands of dentists. The main causes of career dissatisfaction. Number 1 is chronic stress, and I'm going to go over these in a little bit more detail here in a second. Number 2 is isolation. Number 3, we talk about this one in the mastermind group often, hedonic adaptation. And I alluded to this one a little bit earlier, negativity bias. Okay? Chronic stress, isolation, hedonic adaptation, negativity bias. In my opinion, these are the 4 main causes for career dissatisfaction and chronic stress, and career dissatisfaction and stress in our profession. So let's talk about chronic stress. We all know this. I'm going to tell you some things that you already know. Dentistry is hard. Okay? All the stresses of practice management and running a business. We know that we are plate spinners. We're professional plate spinners. We are jugglers. We're juggling leadership, culture, human resources, marketing, admin, efficiency, team and patient relationships. Oh, that's right. And we also have to be an incredible clinician at the same time, doing multiple surgeries simultaneously with micromillimeter precision with no post-op complications. That's easy with all of this stuff as well. Dentistry is physically, mentally, and emotionally demanding. I think we can all agree to that. Debt, cash flow, and financial management was never taught to us in a formal manner. clinical challenges, complications, and unrealistic expectations from our patients. Even when things go perfectly well, sometimes we don't have a happy patient on the other side of it. And then regularly dealing with fearful and phobic patients is also very, very stressful. Okay, let's talk about the science behind this. A stressor is anything that puts pressure on you or threatens your well-being or survival. Stress is a physiological or psychological response to a stressor. When you experience acute stress, your body activates a pathway called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenocortical axis. That rolls off the tongue. The HPA axis, also known as, you guys know, the sympathetic nervous system or the fight or flight response. Okay? When you experience acute stress, fight or flight kicks in. This is a remnant of our old lizard brain survival instinct, right? We used to live in caves. Saber-toothed tiger would walk into the cave. HPA axis would kick in. We'd get a burst of energy. Now we could decide if we want to fight the saber-toothed tiger with our spear maybe, or get the hell out of there and run. Okay? It's a remnant of an old survival instinct, and it served us well. It perpetuated the species. So the HPA axis starts in the limbic system, where the hypothalamus releases hormones that activate the release of additional hormones in the pituitary and adrenal glands. The adrenal gland then releases adrenaline and cortisol, which triggers the fight or flight response. This facilitates a boost in physical activity by increasing your blood sugar and blood flow to your muscles and bumps up your metabolism. This physical boost in energy helps you better fight the stressor or flee from it. Okay? Saber-toothed tiger. Warring village comes over, tries to steal your stuff. Fight or flight kicks in. You survive. Those genes are perpetuated. Okay? The problem is that the saber-toothed tiger and the other village, the neighboring village, is now Mrs. Jones with post-op sensitivity. Now the saber-toothed tiger is your prima donna hygienist. Not that there's any in the room right now. Now the saber-toothed tiger is a separated file in the MB2 of tooth number 3. Now the saber-toothed tiger is spinning all these plates all day, every day. The HPA axis never stops firing. What was supposed to be something spontaneous to use in emergencies now is firing all day long. And when we constantly have adrenaline and cortisol flowing through our blood system, there are consequences to that. So the same system that our ancestors used to survive and perpetuate us as a species causes many complications and issues for modern day humans. Researchers have found that people experience chronic stress. When people experience chronic stress, their fight or flight system is constantly firing, leading to chronically elevated cortisol and adrenaline levels. The continual firing of the sympathetic nervous system creates a host of complications, such as heart disease, autoimmune disease, chronic fatigue, anxiety, and depression. It also speeds up the aging process and decreases the ability to fight infections and increases healing time. There's a really cool study with 11 dental students. This is a medical study done on dental students. They took 11 dental students and they did punch biopsies in their tissue during 2 different periods of time. They did a punch biopsy during finals when their stress was elevated, and they took a punch biopsy while they were on summer vacation and their stress was eliminated, nearly eliminated. And what they found was that the healing time was more than 2 times greater during finals. Okay, so that tells us that when we are chronically stressed, which is also known as any given day in the dental office, we are experiencing a lot of negative physiological effects. One of the important things to do in any circumstance like this is to become aware that it is happening. Awareness is the first thing that we need to wrap our heads around, right? We have to know that this is happening. We have to know that Mrs. Jones is not a saber-toothed tiger. We have to know that that letter from the board that comes sealed and delivered to you about a complaint or the 1-star review is not life-threatening. Perspective and awareness is very important when we're dealing with chronic stress. The second horseman of career dissatisfaction is isolation. We talked a lot about isolation already, but the adverse health consequences of isolation range from poor quality sleep, reduced immune function, anxiety, depression, and increased incidence of suicide. Prolonged isolation leads to chronic stress, which is why the symptoms that you get from chronic stress and isolation are nearly identical. Hedonic adaptation, this is one of my favorite ones. Hedonic adaptation is defined as human beings' tendency to become accustomed to good things that once made them happy and begin to take them for granted. Our ability to adapt to positive circumstances is similar to being on a treadmill. Shortly after achieving a goal, obtaining a long-desired material possession, or receiving a new job or promotion, people quickly adapt to it and begin striving for the next set of goals without ever enjoying the happiness and fulfillment of achieving the previous benchmark. Sorry, that was a lot of words. The bottom line is, especially for all of you alphas in the room, which is 99.9% of the people in this room, we set a goal. When we're 90% there, we set the other goal, the next goal, and we pass right by that benchmark as if nothing positive happened because now we're focusing on the next goal. Until we get 90% to that goal, in which time we set the next goal and pass right through that benchmark until we get 90% from that goal, in which time we set I could do this all day. But what happens is, we're experiencing hedonic adaptation. We never experience the positive benefits to achievement. Once again, awareness is the first step to overcoming this. It's all happened to all of us, right? When I was trying to get into dental school, the only thing that I wanted was to get out of my 300 square foot apartment, to get into dental school, and to start moving towards my ultimate future. When I finally got into dental school, within 3 weeks, well, I'm in dental school, now I'm gonna start bitching about all the things that are wrong with dental school. All I can think about now is getting that first associateship position. I'm gonna make $175,000 my first year. I can't wait to be out of this dental school garbage. As soon as I graduated and got my first associateship, day 3, this sucks. All I want to do is own my first dental practice. If I can own my first dental practice, everything in the world will be better. I bought my first dental practice, and I'm like, damn, multiple practice ownership is where it's at. I got 3 dental practices. I need 5. I got 5 dental practices. I need 10. I got 10 dental practices, and I realized that I was miserable. But nowhere along the line did I take even a slight moment to celebrate all of the benchmarks that I had gone through. And we begin to feel like we're underachievers because we're always striving for the next thing, never feeling like we get there. That is hedonic adaptation. That is something that we talk about a lot in the mastermind group because we are a bunch of alphas. And we get to where we want to get, we don't even realize that we've achieved it because we keep on moving the goalposts. our happiness set point. After attainment of a long-awaited goal, many people find that their happiness boost lacked the duration and intensity that they had once anticipated. This theory also contends that people repeatedly return to a baseline level of happiness and fulfillment, regardless of what happens to them, both positive and negative. Very, very interesting study. Very interesting study. They took a group of lottery winners, and they took a group of people that had recently become paraplegics. This is a famous psychological study. I think it was 1978, if you want to look it up. So they're comparing happiness set point to a group of lottery winners versus happiness set point to a group of paraplegics, new paraplegics. Turns out that when you win the lottery, you have a spike of happiness, which within weeks diminishes to baseline level of happiness, how happy you were before you won the lottery. Hard to believe, but true. And in most cases, for lottery winners, that happiness set point dips below your previous level of happiness and fulfillment. So you're actually less happy after you win the lottery, after a certain period of time, than you were before you won the lottery. It's the first part of the experiment. Second part of the experiment, they took paraplegics, recently paraplegics. Of course, there's a dip in happiness and fulfillment almost immediately after they lost the use of their legs. And within weeks to months, they get back to their happiness and fulfillment set point. And for paraplegics, it slightly elevates above the base level of happiness prior to their accident. Fascinating stuff. So happiness set point is innate. Happiness set point is innate. Does that mean we can't control it? No. Awareness is key. So we're going to talk more about that. Negativity bias is the next one. The notion that even when of equal intensity, things of more negative nature, unpleasant interactions, traumatic events, have a greater effect on one's psychological state than positive things. In other words, something very positive will generally have less of an impact on a person's behavior and cognition than something equally emotional but negative. We all know this is true. How many people remember the last 5 people that gave you a 1-star review on Google? How many people remember their first and last names and the whole situation around why they gave you a 1-star review? How many people remember the last 5 1-star reviews they got? Be honest. Okay. How many people remember the last 10 5-star reviews you got? Okay, we're at our team meeting. We're at our team meeting every single Monday at 7:30 in the morning at our flagship office. We have our growth meeting. One of the first things we do, recognize somebody that did something great. Good job, positive quote. Here's we are. Lead measures, lag measures, new reviews, new 5-star reviews. Oh, good news. We got 16 new 5-star reviews this month, or this week, since the last time we met. And we got 2 1-star reviews. Who the hell left us 2 1-star reviews? Let's talk about that for 15 minutes. We didn't even look at the 15 5-star reviews. We're going to talk for 15 minutes about these 2 whack jobs that gave us 1-star reviews, one of which never even came into the practice. Let's talk about that for 15 minutes. That's negativity bias. That is, again, a remnant of a survival instinct, right? The brain is not designed to make us happy. The brain is designed to keep us alive. So if we focus on things that make us happy, especially back in the day when we were living in caves, we would not have perpetuated the species. It's a remnant of a survival instinct. Okay? So those are the things that are stacked against us in our careers as dentistry and as humans. 6 steps that I've come up with to slaying the 4 horsemen. The first one is awareness, recognition, and context, and perspective, right? To understand that hedonic adaptation is real, but a survival bias, to understand that negativity is a survival bias, is a survival instinct, is the first step for that. We can reason ourselves out of this feeling, this awareness, and making sure that we put everything into context, into perspective, right? Those of us that have, a couple decades under their belts are better than this at, say, somebody that's been out for 3 years, or a dental student whose main concern is passing D2 boards, or whatever they call it nowadays, national boards. We know that in the grand scheme of things, that letter from the board is disturbing, but it's not the end of the world. We know that Mrs. Jones will eventually be okay or go to another practice, and we will happily write her a letter of release, and our day can go on without much thought. But we get wrapped up in these little pieces of minutia, and we allow them to run our lives. So the first step to slaying the 4 horsemen is recognition, context, and perspective. The second one is what Alistair alluded to, and we're going to revisit time and time again throughout this weekend, and that is develop some sort of a self-reflection routine, a journaling routine. We recommend the 4 Futures. Obviously, we created it. Develop a daily routine that includes gratitude, self-reflection, physical exercise, and the 4 Futures journal. I didn't bring mine with me today, but if you guys saw my journal, my 4 Futures journal, every single day I write very small in 0.5 mechanical pencil, and it is filled all over the place. It is my therapy. If you have some sort of gratitude practice, then it's very, very difficult to get hung up on the minutia of the day and Mrs. Jones and the hygiene department and all the things that don't matter. Constant focus and revisiting of the reasons why you're doing things and the reasons why you should be grateful, there's no substitute for it. Step 3, define your non-negotiables. Consider time journaling to complete this step. We're going to talk about time journaling as one of the tools to put in your toolbox. But one of the things that was very, very powerful for me, and Leslie alluded to it in the video in the beginning, was now we schedule the things that are important to us. And the rest of the stuff, including business and including business travel, fits around the non-negotiables. Right? You wouldn't miss a wedding. You wouldn't miss a graduation of a loved one. Those go in your calendar. So should time spent with the people that you love. So should maybe date night. Sorry, Leslie, we don't do enough of that. Define what your non-negotiables are, put them on the schedule, and then the rest of the stuff fills in the gaps. Step 4, develop your personal ethos. We're going to go over an exercise on how to develop your personal ethos. But we talk about core values all the time for our dental practice. Do you guys have a personal ethos? A set of core values for yourself that you live by? Things that are non-negotiable as far as the way that you live your life and the way that you treat other people and the way that you want to be viewed by the world. Do you have a set of personal core values and a personal ethos? And I say here, start with personal integrity. Because many people, we talk about this a lot in the mastermind, many people believe that they are people of integrity. And I believe that the vast majority, if not 100% of this room, are people of high character and integrity. Okay? You don't just end up in a place like this, attracted to an event like this, if you're not a person of high integrity. I want to extend that and put the word personal in front of it. Personal integrity to me means something slightly different than integrity. Integrity means that you're an honest person and that you treat people well and that your idea of fairness and justice and how you live your life will make the world a better place. That is my rough definition of integrity. Doing things the right way, even when people aren't looking. Personal integrity is slightly different. Personal integrity is an extension of integrity, but it means keeping promises to yourself. If you promised yourself that you were going to run 3.2 miles a day for the next 30 days in a 5K challenge, and you faded after the fourth day, then you are out of personal integrity because you did not keep your promise to the most important person, and that was to yourself. If you promised yourself that you're going to stop eating deep fried foods or processed foods on the 1st, or stop drinking, 6 days a week, you promised yourself that on December 31st and you made it to January 2nd, then you are out of personal integrity. Personal integrity is keeping your promises to yourself. So if you extend to yourself in your mind that I am a person of integrity, I do the right thing, I am honest, even when somebody's not looking, I'm not going to do something underhanded to anybody else in the world. You are a person of integrity. Expand that definition. If I'm going to be a person of integrity, that means that I'm going to keep the promises to myself as well. If you come up with that and you make that decision and you extend your definition of personal integrity, there's nothing that you're going to hear this weekend. There's no promise that you're going to make to yourself this weekend that you won't be able to accomplish. But you have to make that leap in your head. If I agree to keep the promises to myself at the same level that I commit to keeping the promises to my spouse and my kids, there's nothing that you can't accomplish that we're going to be talking about this weekend. Number 5, eliminate the lone wolf mindset. We talked a lot about community and collaboration. I'm not going to beat a dead horse there. Step 6, give more away. I can't tell you the number of people that I talked to that were in exactly the position that I was when I turned 38 years old. And that was when I sold my 4 practices and I considered leaving dentistry forever. It actually, coincidentally, was the same time that I hit my financial goal that I set when I was 15 years old of having $1 million in the bank and netting $1 million per year, $83,333. By the time I was 35, that was my goal. I was 38 and I accomplished it. When I was also 38 years old, I realized that I was burnt out and I had never been more miserable in my life for a number of different reasons. Primarily because my personal relationships weren't in a good place, but I was also physically exhausted. My general disposition, my default disposition was negativity, frustration, and anger. And that came from a lot of different things. Not having the practice set up the right way, not having defined my non-negotiables, working too hard physically, not having a good organizational chart in my personal and professional life. But I will tell you, this is a very, very common theme in dentistry where we work ourselves almost to death, where a good percentage of dentists actually die at the chair if you are burnt out. The first and fastest antidote to burnout in dentistry is to give more away. I know it sounds counterintuitive. If you are burnt out beyond even being able to think about doing another comp exam or class 2 resin on tooth number 30, give more away. Find out a way to have a free dental day in your office or go on a mission trip. It will almost immediately remind you of the gift that we have in our hands, the gift that we can give to the rest of the world. There's something so different than writing a check for $10,000 and giving it to the United Way and taking that same $10,000, booking a ticket to fly to the Dominican Republic and do free dental work for 5 days on people that can't afford shoes. And to be able to see tears of joy when they're able to smile for the first time in 40 years. And if you do that, and you come back to your practice, you're not going to be burnt out anymore. There's no faster adjustment to a crappy attitude about your profession and career dissatisfaction and burnout than giving more of it away and reminding yourself of the miraculous gift that you have in your 2 hands and how many lives you can change.